What's up, fish friends, and welcome back to our YouTube channel, Casual Reef Keeping. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for plenty more reef keeping content. Today's going to be a little bit of an unusual one. I am working on a cheap and hopefully aesthetically pleasing canopy for the 180. Now, many tanks come with them. Mine did not, and I have a ton of that blue light spill into my living room. It bothers my wife. The neighbors give me weird looks when they see the glow. My house looks like a space shuttle. So we're going to work on fixing that. So the good part was, with a 6-foot long fish tank, I got 6-foot long 1x3s to build out the frame. I wanted to make this as beginner friendly as possible, and while making it cheap, sometimes you have to spend a little more for some of the pre-cut stuff or the smaller pieces of wood, but it'll make it easier for someone who's never done woodworking before to build them. Because this is not a woodworking channel, I don't need to be teaching complicated things. This is like homeowner level woodworking that hopefully you all find really easy. So luckily, with a 6-foot fish tank, which is actually 72.5 inches with the, oops, sorry, let me get some better lighting, 72.5 inches with the plastic, you know, the little trimmer on the top. 6 feet is 72 inches, but wonderfully, the 6-foot 1x3s are actually 74 inches. So I'll be able to cut the last couple inches right off, and we'll be at the right length. I'm going to make a skeleton out of the 1x3s, pocket hole screw them together, and then I got these stainless steel corner brackets that I'm going to use in addition to the pocket hole screws to help kind of make sure these corners stay 90 degrees, because there won't be a back to it. Then eventually I'll get to the doors. You've got some options. In my case, I'm going to cut out 2 rectangular openings, the same or similar width as the doors on the stand, and then I'm going to make, you're probably using 1/2-inch ply, make some doors with, I think I'm going to do an upward hinge instead of, I guess, horizontal. I'll do an upward hinge and maybe add a gas strut because I'm feeling fancy. But you don't have to go that crazy. You could go no doors and slide this thing off. It should be pretty lightweight. You can just cut openings in the front if you want. You could do curtains if you're really feeling, I don't know, lazy. That seems like an easy thing to do, is cut giant holes and then throw a curtain over it. But let's get down to business. All right, so here are my quick and dirty plans. 72.5 wide is the tank, 24 and 7/16 is the front to back. We're going to end up making up a little of that with a piece of trim later down the road, because the panels I got, which I'll show you in a second, to sheathe the skeleton, I figured, let me make this easy, were 2-foot by 2-foot pre-cut Luan plywood, literally $5 a piece. Really made this nice and cheap. So I think I'm $90 in at this point without any trim work or doors so far. Sure, there's probably some mass-produced stuff that comes, I don't know if it is end up that cheaper. I haven't looked, to be honest. I just figured I'd have to make one of these anyway. So these are my plans. I'm leaving myself the 1 7/8 inch of plywood overhanging on the skeleton so that this way it covers all of the black trim. So my overall height for my skeleton is going to be 21 1/8. And then I measured the lumber, because a 1x3 is not actually 1 inch by 3 inch, it's 3/4 by 2.5. At least that's how I measured the lumber I got. Always measure your own lumber. So the 2 pieces, how I'm going to construct this, of across on the top, those pieces will be my 6-foot long pieces. So I need a 17 1/8 piece to fill that gap. So now let's get to cutting. So after thinking about it, and after recording that other one, I decided if I went the full height, it would be way too tall. So I'm actually going to go up just 14 inches total above the tank, because the light fixture is about 12. And this way I'll have access to it. It'll hide the top of the fixture a little better. So now I want to negate my 1 7/8. So that whole, actually no, I need to add the 1 7/8. So that'll make my entire overall height 15 7/8, so just shy of 16 inches. And I'll have to change my math here of 15 7/8 We're going to subtract the 5 inches for 2.5 inch widths, so that's only 10 7/8 height here. And now we're good to start cutting again.
There was once a day that I would pray for you. I'd go and misbehave just so you'd notice too. Sneaking looks up and down from across the room. And damn, what a hell of a view. I feel good, you look great, I like you, I can't wait. A first time, a first date, you're so fine, I'm so late. You sip wine, I drink straight.
Alright, so now we're going to assemble how our pocket holes go together. I already started some of it before. We're going to use these holes into these panels with our pocket hole screws. I'm using the other lumber to make sure it stays nice and flat. As a reference, you can try clamping them. You've got lots of options on how to do this. So I like to put a finger on that side to make sure it's flush. Finger on the top to keep it flat. Sometimes it pulls apart a little bit. Sucks it right in. I'll sand all the burrs and whatnot off after if I choose, but this is the inside that's going to get some type of polyurethane finish on it just to protect it from the moisture. So I'm going to hold this side flat again. See, it helps to push them together a little bit. Let's see when I do this other side. But if I apply pressure towards the screw as well, it'll help keep it from separating a little bit. That time went a little smoother. And I'm not using an impact driver, but I'm not, sending it to the moon. I am just simply making it flush and tight. Now I'm going to flip my piece around. Do the same thing with the other side and another 4 screws.
There was once a day that I would pray for you. I'd go and misbehave just so you'd notice too. Sneaking looks up and down from across the room. And damn, what a hell of a view. I feel good, you look great, I like you, I can't wait.
If we want, we can check 90, perfect. In this part, 90. Check up here, 90. And for fun there, I also bought, because I wanted to make sure this had some enforcement in its frame, and what you heard fall before are some stainless steel corner pieces that are going to go like this, like that, and these will make sure that it keeps its 90 so I'm not straining those pocket hole screws. So I'm going to screw these in real quick. So I got the inner screws in. We still have our 90, and now I'll put the other screws in. All right, so now we're going to attach some of our skins. I'm using these 5/8 inch brad nails, or they're 18 gauge nails. You could just clamp and glue it. You could screw it. I have a nail gun, so I might as well use it. It's going to be entirely based on what you've got available. Because again, this was a budget build. So I'm going to put my panel up, and now we've decided, we said before, oops, oh, would have helped if I took that off. Oh, let me grab a flathead, a chisel, or a pry bar, pull that stinking staple out. Little minor oversight there. Things happen. Something to keep in mind with your box store lumber. Let's try that again. Just going to line this board up. Now we cut it to that lip length in order to overlap the plastic on the tank. So as you can see, there is a difference here. So I'm making it flush at the top. I know it's not as wide as the other one. Back up a little bit, Noah. But that's because what I'm going to do with this is I'm gonna put a piece of decorative, not decorative, but trim. I'm gonna try to match the tank stand. So now I'm just gonna come to the corner down here and we will pop a nail in there just to hold it. Looks like I need a little more oomph. Let's try another nail. Good. Something to keep in mind, keep your hand away from the back just in case this goes through. So my hands are off to the side. We're just gonna send a bunch of nails in. Oop, too close to the edge there. All right, now I'm gonna go do the same thing on the other side and we'll go for a test fit. Time for the moment of truth, the dry fit. The fish look terrified. Oh, like a glove. Oops, helps if I push it on evenly. So while I figure out how I want to do the front doors, oh, that worked perfectly. You can't tell by my excitement, I've never done this before. Oh man. So if you look at the edge, you can see that overlap, just a hair longer than the black. So now from the sides and once the front is on, you won't see that. So I'll cover the front, which maybe I'll do that in place, I could, and decide how I want to do the doors. Oh, I'm excited. So it's another day later and I realized two, maybe three things. One, totally forgot to show you guys how I made those pocket holes for the pocket hole screws. That one uses what's called a pocket hole screw jig. I use one made by Craig. It doesn't really matter what brand you use, there's a couple others. It involves clamping the wood into this block and then you drill the hole and it's got a drill guide to make that angular hole for your pocket hole screw. So sorry if I'm missing that one. In the future, if I do a tutorial, I will try to be a little more thorough. I also then realized while staring at this unfinished canopy, I had no patience. So I went ahead, I put the skin on the front, I then cut out the opening. You've got a couple different options. As you can see, I split the opening in half here with a divider in the middle. So it's gonna be two separate doors. I ended up just pocket hole screwing two more 1x3s here. I put the plywood over the top with the nail gun the same way. And what I ended up doing was using a flush trim bit for my router. I drilled a hole, sunk that router bit through, and ran it all the way around to cut nice even holes against the edge, which I'll give you a close-up of in a second. What that allowed me to do was that made making these holes very quick and easy. That's because I have a small trim router. If you don't have a small trim router, you can do it with a jigsaw, a handsaw. You've got a lot of options. So some of the things I do might not be what you're gonna do if you decide to do this, but you got options. I then sprayed the inside, like I said about a polyurethane. I ended up using a minwax polyacrylic. It's just what I had. I've used it before, so I sprayed the inside with 2 coats of that to protect it from the moisture, and threw a coat of primer on the outside, and then I got to work on the trim. All right, so if you look closely here, you can see that my plywood skin is trimmed right up against the 1x. And then I added this decorative, well, I'm gonna call it decorative trim. It's really just 1x3. The same wood I used to make the frame, I nailed to the face of it. And then I ended up using a small roundover bit just to kind of take the sharp edge off of this. As you can see as I come around here. I did the same thing with a 2x1 coming up vertically. I was trying to match this, and I guess I should have rounded it over before I added it on and then kept it flush with the side, but I just felt it would have looked a little goofy. I know I'm pointing out my flaw here, but that's okay. I then went through with, you can see some of the nails bled through, but a little wood filler and sanding. All right, so here's where we stand with the stand canopy, no pun intended. At this point, I don't have the doors. I gotta find the right bits to make that shape, but we'll get to that in the next video. I'm sorry this wasn't the most detailed tutorial. I'm not a woodworking teacher. I've learned a lot of this as I go. So I was really just trying to show you guys what I'm doing to try to pretty this up a little bit. So now that's blocking a good amount of light, you don't see as much spill off to the sides. Once I get the doors on, you won't have all the spill in the front, and I'll add some little more finishing trim maybe if I want to seal it up against the wall. Anyway, thank you guys for watching our YouTube channel. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and drop any questions in the comments below.
There was once a day that I would pray for you. I'd go and misbehave just so you'd notice too. Sneaking